All right, y'all. Good morning, good afternoon, good
Yeah.
evening, because I don't know when you're catching this video, but I will say welcome to another episode
Yeah.
of the Young and Married podcast. Let me just quickly say you used to know us as Breakfast with Mark and Jen,
Right.
but guess what? Now we're young and married.
Let's go.
So today's topic is interesting.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
No, I'm saying, oh boy, okay? Because your boy
I'm ready.
wants us to tackle this.
I'm ready.
But we've been just looking at social media of our friends, social media of people we don't know, but maybe we know of.
Right.
And it just seems to us that I don't know, it just seems like it's easier for guys to get married quickly after a divorce.
Yeah.
Versus women who get a divorce. So we're not saying that women can't get remarried. We're saying what we've noticed is it seems to us that the men are getting married quicker after divorce than women.
Right.
And you know what? We want to help our singles out there that are looking to be remarried with this theory. So, Mark, I'm just going to put the question out to you first. Okay? Because Mark is a guy, and so we want to know from a guy's perspective, for a single sister who has gone through a divorce but does believe she wants to get remarried.
Right.
Why does it seem to me and you that guys can get married quicker after such a traumatic event? Is that just in our heads, or is that what really happens?
I think we can't discount the numbers, right? So I don't think we can discount the statistics. We can't say, okay, we feel like there's not a lot of divorce happening, but yet the statistics show that the divorce rate is high.
Right.
So I think it's applicable to this kind of scenario that if you are divorced, for men, they can get married faster than women. And that is
just off the numbers game.
Just off of what we see, right? Just off of what we're experiencing. And what we're saying is, why? Why does that seem to be the case?
Right.
And I think it's more than it seems to be the case. I think it's an actual realistic thing. It's a fact that men are getting remarried faster than women are getting remarried. And to me, the first reason is because there's just more opportunity for men than there are women. It's so because there's more women and because there's more single women, the pool is greater. So the odds are in favor of men to find what they're looking for, even though they're divorced, because there's just more women. And I think, we just need to land there first to help a female's brain, to help a woman's psyche, to even just make it even more practical to a man, for them to realize that, I'm probably winning in this area because the odds are in my favor.
Right. Not because you're stellar, but because there's more of a pool to...
Like stop beating yourself up and say...
I'm saying to the guys.
What?
When you were like, I'm winning in this area, I'm like, right, not because you're necessarily stellar, but because you have a greater pool to choose from. And there are stellar men out there. I think about my husband, who I'm sitting next to, my dad, my father-in-law. I mean, there are some stellar guys out there, but some are able to get remarried over and over again. And I just want you to know, it may not be because you're stellar. It may just be because you have a wide pool. But
you want to make sure that I didn't gloss over that.
Listen.
That the people heard that.
Right. So that my sisters who are looking to get remarried can have good self-esteem and understand that just right off the bat, it's almost like an unfair advantage that men have because there's a wider pool. All right. But if you're stellar and you're a stellar guy, that PSA was not for you.
Yeah, I think that, it's true. It's just more women out there.
Absolutely.
More opportunity out there. If you're going fishing, and there's no fish in the water or few fish in the water, it's going to take you longer to catch that fish.
Yes.
But if I go fishing and there's a school of fish around, I dropped my bait in the water, somebody's biting.
Right.
Absolutely. So why are you out here crying yourself to sleep?
Thinking that thinking that you have no value, or thinking that nobody would want me now that the first thing we're addressing is that understand what you're up against.
Yeah.
Is that your divorce may have been valid, but just understand that one factor, and we'll touch on several, is the fact you're saying, Mark, that women have to stop beating themselves up for just the simple fact that there's not as many men as there are women.
There's not as many.
Not even close, really. I mean.
Yeah, it's not even close.
No, it's not.
It's not even close.
No.
Some people say it's like 2 to 1, 3 to 1. Like it's a lot more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So men just have their opportunity to pick and choose. Yeah. And sometimes it feels like the pool of women is like a box of chocolate. You know, men are just out here like, what kind of candy do I want now?
Right.
And it doesn't mean that that's what women are, but sometimes, and I say that because, hey, sometimes you kind of need to hear how a guy thinks. That's why we don't script this.
Correct.
We don't script this. And so a guy who has just gotten divorced may be saying to himself, you know what? The first time it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But this time I want to try something different. Mm-hmm. And he has the ability to do that because there are options available to him. Mm-hmm. And so women don't have that. So on the flip side, I think a woman is dealing with very narrow waters, very narrow streets, not a lot of men. Mm-hmm. And then it depends on where you are in your life. So let's get to the second level of this. The second level of this is, when did you get divorced? How old are you? Where are you in your life? Where are you in your career? Mm-hmm. Where are you in your finances? Like, all these things matter because the more wealthy you are, is the more that the pool even shrinks. The pool shrinks even more, right? So if you
Which is tough, because a woman can't help how much money she makes, meaning she can't help if she has a booming career or a booming business. And we're not suggesting that you should lower your financial income in order to get married. So that's what makes it tough.
Yeah.
Is that's not even a character flaw. It's just she's been blessed either in her career or in her business. And now maybe she's super wealthy, but you're saying for a lot of guys, that's going to also be tough.
It's going to be tough. So let's take this scenario, right? Let's say you're between 40 and 50 and you have a really good career. And we won't get to the kids yet. We'll stay on the career. You have a really good career and you are divorced and you're making good money. Mm-hmm. How do you, as a woman now, find a man that is compatible? Because most men between 40 and 50 are married. If they're in your tax bracket, if you're wealthy, if you have money, if you make 6 figures, if you're pretty comfortable, right?
Right.
Most of those men are married with a family, stable. So you have just cut off a lot of your options just based on where you are in life.
Wow.
Because now you're divorced and you're like, okay, let me jump out here in these streets. Okay. So a 40 to 50-year-old guy that is single, I mean, what are the odds?
You're saying he's not on Wall Street.
What are the odds that he is where you need him to be in terms of his marital status? That he's not stable in his life as it relates to relationships. He probably is. So then now you have to go to a lower income, right? To maybe find a guy who doesn't have his life together. So now you have all these things going on because you're struggling, because you want to find somebody who's single and you're realizing, hey, I can't find him at my job, can't find him in the boardroom. Let me go to the football game. Well, you realize that 40 to 50-year-old man who's at the football game, who's single, he has problems.
Uh-oh.
He has problems.
So men with problems go to the football games.
No. 40 to 50-year-old men who don't have anything going on.
Go to
who
football
don't,
games.
That's just an example. That's just one spot.
Because apparently then ladies need to go to the basketball games.
You need to do something. But what I'm trying to say is that the reason for some of the hardships that females are experiencing is because the odds aren't in their favor. So you're going to have to concede in some area. You may have to concede in an area that you didn't think you had to. And then that's why a lot of women say, you know what? I can't do that. I can't take the 40 to 50-year-old guy who has nothing going on and goes to football games.
Right.
So I'm going to just be out here single. And then that leads to their frustration.
Wow. And the thing is, Mark, I wanted to touch on this because you said that there are times when a woman, based on what she has going on, may have to concede. So I just want women to understand that when we say concede, we don't mean settle. I think there's a difference. Because the way I interpret settling is settling means you are putting up with things that you shouldn't put up with, such as a poor character, such as a man who, well, this ties into poor character, but a man who's abusive in any way. Settling also looks like being with a man who is always going to put his family, meaning his parents or his siblings, before you. That's settling, because if you can tell he's never going to change that, that's not the position you should be in. Conceding, though, means that he has great character, means that he treats you the way you should be treated. He puts you in the right priority where it's God, you, and then everybody else. But maybe what you're conceding on is age. Or maybe you're conceding on, okay, the last time I was married to a doctor and I'm an accountant. Maybe this time I have to be married to a high school teacher who also teaches football. So he's not going to make as much as I make as a female CPA, but he loves God. He loves me. So I just wanted to put that plug in there, Mark, that when you say concede, you don't mean they should settle for things that are going to cause them further pain and mistreatment or heartache, but rather concede on, if I'm 40 and my first husband was in my age bracket within 5 years, but now here's this guy, I'm 40, he's 35, 36. He thinks we should get married.
Right.
He loves me. He loves God. But I never thought I would marry somebody even a year younger than me. Maybe that's another concession, but it's not necessarily bad or wrong.
Right. And that's what happens when that's what happens when the pool shrinks, right? That's what happens when you say, hey, I want to fish today. But the only fish available to me are fish that I don't prefer. You may not prefer it, but hey, you want to eat, so you catch that fish.
Right.
And I think that you may have to concede in terms of age. You may have to concede in terms of what you loved physically.
Okay.
Like you're not 22 anymore.
Oh.
The thing is, you're not 22. You've been through life.
Yep.
You're trying to start the second half of your life or the next season, the next phase of your life. So you can't think that the world is my oyster and I have all these options.
Right.
Now, you may not have those options. You may have to pick a guy that has great character, who will treat you right, but he wasn't your ideal when it came to certain things.
Right. Exactly. So I think physique is another big one, Mark, in terms of he may not be the bodybuilder that you wanted. He may not be the height you wanted, the complexion you wanted. And I've said this in a different podcast. He may not even be the race you wanted. But be open to whatever God wants to send you in this next season.
Right, right. You have to be open to that. And that's some of the things that I think people are wrestling with, and the hardship that tends to be on the woman's side versus a man. And so how a man thinks, so let's say a man is divorced and he has some kids,
Mm-hmm.
and he's ready to go back out there and find a wife. He thinks that he is the best catch in the world. He thinks that there's nothing wrong.
Right.
He feels like having kids, no problem.
Right.
You know, transition out of this situation, no problem. Maybe I'm moving from one house to another, no problem. Like, none of those things are a negative to him. Why? Because he has options.
Yeah.
So he can go out there and still get what he desires, even with all of that baggage. What I think a woman needs to realize is that her baggage matters more than a man's baggage.
That's real. That's real.
It matters more. So he is divorced with kids.
Yep.
He may want a wife that didn't have kids.
And he can probably get it because of all the options that he has. And he can probably even have more flexibility in what age bracket he wants, because here again, it's the amount of options. But you're saying that whether we like it or not, even children can be a barrier for a woman, which is why she needs to be okay with the man that's also going to accept her children, even if he's a little older than you thought you wanted, or slightly younger than you thought you wanted. But if you know he genuinely is going to love your kids for who they are and not try to make you feel like you should get rid of them or toss them to the side, that's what you're looking for.
That's what you're looking for, because a guy is out here like, hey, if I want a new wife that doesn't have any kids, doesn't have any baggage, he may be 45, but he can go out there and get a 30-year-old woman or a 28-year-old woman.
Yeah.
Because he has options.
Yeah.
If you're a 45-year-old woman, if you're a 50-year-old woman, if you're a 55-year-old woman, and you've lived life and you have kids, you may not be able to pull that 25-year-old guy.
Right. And if you're 55, you don't need a pull.
You may, right. But you may want that physically, or you may want to, reinvigorate your life, and you want to feel young again and all that stuff. But, guys at 25 are probably really immature.
Yeah.
Not ready.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that I think also we have to talk about, Jen, the fact that they're probably looking for different things.
Right. That's true.
So a woman who is divorced and has kids is looking for something. That's quite different than a man who's divorced and has kids is looking for.
Okay. So I'll walk through what I believe a woman divorced at a certain age with kids is looking for, because I want you to walk us through how that may be different from a man.
Right.
So let's take two people of the same age. 45-year-old woman divorced with kids is, I would think, as a woman, is still looking for what she had in her first marriage to a certain extent, meaning a life partner, a companion, somebody who's willing to, he'll never be their child's biological father, but you at least want him to be a father figure. More than likely, statistically, those kids are probably going to live with the mom. So she wants a man that's going to be willing to step up, and the times that they're in that home, not try to be their biological dad, but be a father figure and help provide discipline and help provide love and help provide safety. Whereas I think a 45-year-old man with kids, I'll let you take that part. Here he is, same age, also has children, also divorced. But where now does he probably differ from the woman his exact age who also has kids?
Well, it depends, because maybe the kids aren't with him full time, like they probably are with a woman in that situation.
Yeah.
And if they are, he's looking for someone that can take care of the kids, of course, that can provide just like she is. But I think what differs is that he can get more close to what he needs because he has more options to choose from. So he doesn't have to settle. So he doesn't have to be like, hey, I'll pick a beautiful wife, but she can't take care of my kids. He's like, no, I'm going to pick a beautiful wife who can take care of my kids. and that influences the way that he actually pursues and goes after this thing. And then guys just know in the back of our heads, we know if we, ask a woman to marry us, like it's easy.
Yeah.
We know that we can get a woman to marry us. So it's different. A woman can't just get a man to marry her or the right man to marry her like that. And all these things influence what is happening here. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying this should be taken into account.
Yeah.
When people get married, when they're struggling, and when they decide to end the marriage.
Okay. Yep.
You should end the marriage if you should end the marriage.
Correct.
But you shouldn't end the marriage thinking that the grass is greener.
Right. Right. Because that's the thing, Mark, is that you and I have said when we talk amongst ourselves that we're just not convinced that the rate of divorce we're seeing now, that all of those divorces were warranted or had enough grounds to become a divorce. We believe that some of them were warranted because we don't believe that you should stay in situations of patterns of abuse.
Right.
Repeated infidelity, things like that. But we're saying of all the divorces that are happening, are all of them because of abuse and infidelity and mistreatment and disrespect? All of them?
Yeah.
Because it's so high that we have to believe that some of them may have been salvageable, but one or both parties hit a rough enough patch that they started looking over the fence and felt like, let me just cut this off because I could just go pick up another spouse tomorrow. And then now sometimes people are finding, especially the women, as we're talking about in this episode, are finding that, oh, wait, maybe it's not as easy as I thought.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that people feel like, hey, if I just cut this off, I just get a new one. Like it's a car.
Right.
Like this stopped working, so I'm going to just go get a new one.
Right.
Well, I don't know if they're selling what you had down the street. Like you have to think about the fact that with all of their flaws, are they selling what you had down the street? Can you just go buy? Can you just go grab what you had in the club? Can you just go grab what you had in the boardroom? Can you just go? So I feel like, and I said the club and the boardroom on purpose, because you'll be shocked where Christians, the spaces they venture into, because they're looking for something. So you don't club like that. You don't go to parties, but all of a sudden you're divorced and you're like, man, maybe I should try the club.
Right.
Because you're out there and you're so desperate now and also you're trying to prove to yourself that you're valuable. You're trying to prove maybe to that person you divorced that, hey, look at me, I got somebody else.
Right.
And that's a trap that you can fall into because you're actually settling or you're getting the wrong person and you're out here just trying to show that I can do better than you were. But Jen, what I also wanted to talk about was who can get married faster, just in general. Who can get married faster? Divorced, just who can get married faster, men or women?
To be honest, Mark, I still think it's men, even when there's nothing at play that we just discussed. I feel like even without kids, without a divorce, without any other baggage that may be there, I still think it's men. Because especially when you're talking about the faith context, the Christian context that we're in, I think men can still get married faster, not just because there's a pool of women that is larger than the pool of men, but also because in the Christian context as women, we have been taught to wait for the man to come to us. And so because I don't believe we should be the aggressor or the one to ask her. First of all, I hate to see a woman propose to a man. I hate to see it. It is not acceptable. It is not classy. Stop it. Stop it. So, because of that, because I still have enough tradition in me to believe that you should wait for him to get on one knee. He has so many options that sometimes I think he either takes his time or he ends up going with another option when you thought it was going to be you. So I think in general, from a woman's perspective, it still feels like men can get married faster just for those reasons.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm like, if you're single and you're like, well, I've never been through a divorce because I've never even been married and I'm a lady, how come why? Well, unfortunately, I think when it comes to this particular topic, men still have the unfair advantage.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. I think men would have the advantage, even if the numbers were a little closer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just that nuance there where women want to receive something from a man, and a man has to go out there and chase and provide and all that. And so because of that, women are a little bit more hesitant, reserved.
Right.
They're more passive in that role. They're waiting.
Yep.
And the man is pursuing. And so it's like, men have more options. Men can get married faster. I think it takes a certain type of woman to get married fast.
Yeah.
She's doing something that is putting her in a position where she's getting married fast. Like, if you're out here and you've had like 5, 6, 7 husbands, like, what is going on?
You're deceiving and scheming.
You're
plotting.
You're doing something. Like,
if you've just say what it is, Mark. If you're a woman who has had 5 and 6 husbands, you are scheming and plotting and deceiving, because there's just absolutely no way that you're being your true self and you have 6 husbands? 6? No, I'm sorry. That is a woman whose character I probably am not going to be able to get behind. Okay? Because the rest of us women doing it the right way are out here wishing and hoping and praying. But you've had 6 husbands?
Yeah.
Probably not being your true self.
Yeah, you're probably not.
Not initially.
Yeah. And so people will feel like it's a double standard, where, and it's unfair. And I don't think it is. I think it's just life.
I think it's life. And, a lot of times the context that women that grew up like me were fed is the scripture that talks about he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from God. And so that's why a lot of times as Christian women, we were taught not to be the aggressor, not to be the one that is doing the chasing, because a man is supposed to find you. And I still believe that. I believe that there were certain things in that context that maybe were incorrect. So then some women were taught that means you shouldn't take advantage of certain resources or tools that maybe God is okay with. But I don't think it means that. I do think it means, though, that God is looking for the man to lead from the outset.
Right.
And so I believe if a man is supposed to find you and you are his favor, I do believe that from the outset he should be leading. I'm not saying that you should never give him a hint that you like him also, or that you should play so hard to get that now he's frustrated and he's going to give up. I don't believe that. But I do believe that let him initiate. Yeah. Why are you asking for the first date?
I mean, listen.
Or do you feel like...
I challenge that.
Okay.
I think that...
Well, I didn't ask for the first date because I would not have just been able to muster up the courage the way I was raised.
Yeah. But I think in these streets today, you have to do something.
So then what is a Christian man's interpretation of then he that finds a wife finds a good thing, if you're not really against even the female initiating the first outing or date?
I think it is one-sided or biased to say that the context of that scripture is only that a man can pursue a woman.
Okay.
So that a man has to go out there and find a woman. Because history is showing us that women have been successful in pursuing a man in a godly, wholesome way, and it's worked. Because it doesn't mean that when they pursue that man, that he'll feel like she'll be the lead.
Okay.
'Cause I can think of a couple right now. I won't name them because they're well known.
Okay.
Like, she went up to him.
Right.
She asked him, yo, take me out.
Right.
And he was like, what? She was like, yo, you taking me out.
Right.
When I come see you, you're taking me out. And they had, from what it seems to be, they have a great relationship.
Right.
And he's leading.
Right. True.
But she just knew what she wanted. It's like she was just that driven by faith, that driven by taking a risk. And she was like, hey, I'm going to put it out there.
So I guess also then people just also need to stay in the context of what their personality is.
Right, because she had that personality.
Because I don't have that personality. So if you and I were single and just meeting each other, I still just would not have been.
I think that's what it is.
I'm
It's
just
personality driven.
Yeah, it's personality driven because I'm not a shy introverted person, but when it comes to those things, I am on the shyer side.
Yeah.
So I just would have never been able to say it that bluntly. I may have only been able to give you a hint that I'm interested, smiling at you a certain way.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to, hey, Mark, next time you see me, you're taking me out. I would have not been able to handle that.
Yeah, because some women are out here like, I'm smiling and he ain't seeing it.
Well, I actually know a single woman right now, Mark, that told me there's a guy she likes. And I haven't asked her what she's done, but she believes that she's giving him hints. And she said she doesn't even feel that he's rejecting her. She feels like he's not like seeing that she's giving him hints. So I have to ask her now that we're doing this podcast, I realize I need to go back and ask her and say, sis, what is your interpretation of I'm giving him hints? Because she said she feels like, she said if he was rejecting her, she would pull back because she'd be like, I guess he's not interested. She said the way the guy is talking and acts around her, she doesn't even think that he's tuned into the fact that she's giving him hints.
Guys are dumb.
So she may have to say to that guy, why don't we go hang out?
Why not? Like, we're in 2024 and you out here upset that you're not on a date with the person you want to be on a date with and you won't say anything.
Yeah, she said she just wants to hang out with him, but she's like, it's been a year since I've met him and he's not asked me. But then she said it's not like, to her knowledge, he's dating anybody else either.
Right.
So she's like, then why can't you just ask me? But you're saying he may not realize that she wants to go out with him.
He may not realize that. And listen, he may not even be thinking about her. But if you come in his face like that, all of a sudden he is thinking.
Oh.
Like, sometimes you have to turn on the lights. Can I give the ladies a hint? When you're
men just sitting in the dark.
When you're pursuing a guy, sometimes you just have to turn on the lights. Stop sitting there in the dark and being like, oh, he won't ask me. Oh, he won't call me. Oh, he won't text me. Text him. Turn on the lights. Maybe he'll be like, oh, I wasn't thinking about her, but now I am thinking about her. And so we're in 2024. There's so many pathways to marriage. I don't want to look at a scripture and say it has to be one way when it's not explicitly delineated that God is giving a commandment that says women don't pursue men, men only pursue. In the context when Solomon's writing that, he's in a patriarchal society.
Right.
Men always found women. Like, that's the way it went.
Yeah.
A woman would never dare in that society pursue. So when he's writing, he's like, in my context, the way that I think, the way that my world works, he that finds a way, it would be totally out of his whole scope, out of his way of thinking, for him to even suggest that a woman is finding a man.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I see that with a little bit of wiggle room these days, and say we have online
Mark is
dating.
like, don't listen to Jen, you'll still be single.
No, I'm not saying that because you have valid points. I feel like
I just think if a woman's going to pursue, there's still a difference between a little pursuit and being just outright aggressive and a turnoff.
And we should do a video on rules of engagement because I think that there are ways to do it, and you shouldn't step outside of your personality. But in 2024,
or what's just proper. Like, you can be too aggressive. Women, you can be.
But wait,
If the guy says, I'm going to call you back on Monday, and he didn't get to call you back until Wednesday, and you're chewing his head off and saying, how dare you call me back on Wednesday, and you said you were going to, that is not pursuing a man. That is becoming his problem. He did call you. You don't know what happened, why he didn't call you back on Monday. Why don't you get the facts first? That's what I'm saying, Mark. That's what that's why it has to be a separate podcast, because I'm saying there's a certain level of femininity and finesse that women still have to have in 2024, and biting the guy's head off because he called you on Wednesday instead of Monday is not a good enough reason until you know why.
That's one of the biggest red flags for a dude.
See, we're about to start a whole new podcast, and I want us to save this material for another episode.
This is good. We got so much material. It's such a red flag, because if I'm a guy and we hang out and, you know, I don't call you the very next day, I don't want you on me. Like, because for a guy, there's a thin line between you showing interest and for you turning me off.
Exactly.
Right? And actually overwhelming me. There's a very thin line.
So you could also just not be getting married if you're showing aggressive behavior.
And the rules apply. Right. And these rules apply to
both genders.
Both genders, and even if you've been divorced.
Right.
So if you've been divorced and you're talking to a guy and you're too aggressive, he's like, I wonder why she's divorced. He's like, maybe this is why she's divorced.
And it may not even be the reason, but you're giving him food for thought, maybe unintentionally.
The vibes you're giving me is you're too much.
Uh-oh.
And this is going to be too much to handle. And so that's why it's a thin line. You have to know how to massage that thing, how to drop the hints. Like, so catching a fish is so apropos as an analogy for how to date, how to engage. Because if you've ever fished, you know that there's a science depending on the fish you're trying to catch. There's a science depending on how heavy the fish is, what bait you're using. Because sometimes you have to reel the fish in and then let the fish run with the reel. Then reel them in more and then let them swim with it. Reel it in. So when you're dating, when you're engaging with someone, you don't just reel the person in. When are you going to call me? When are you going to call me? How come you didn't text me last night? And you're just reeling. Let them run a little bit.
Yeah.
Let some interest build.
Yeah.
And then you reach out again.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
So,
we're going to have to do a part 2, y'all.
I think part 2 is going to be really good. But so men absolutely can get married faster with a divorce, without a divorce. I hope that we were able to shed some light on some of the barriers for women after they've been divorced, what they're going to have to deal with, what they're going to have to go through. It is what it is, but if you understand it, then I think you'll be positioned better mentally. Yeah. And you won't be struggling. You won't feel like, man, something's wrong with me. Guys just have it better and easier.
Yeah. In this scenario, absolutely.
Yeah. So, listen, y'all. That wraps up this episode of Young and Married. If you didn't get the book, go ahead and get our book. It's really helpful for singles and those that are married. And we want you to thrive in your relationship. So this has been another episode of Young and Married, and we will catch you next time. Peace out.